Chapter 48 of the Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Meg Turasek. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 48. The Bloody Conspirators in Terrible Fear of Dr. Juno. Deacon Rob Stew had two serious assaults made upon him close together, for almost as soon as he had recovered from his gunshot wound, which, however, was kept perfectly secret, he received the beating at Tabernacle Hall. The night when the sentinel and 2 or 3 brethren attempted to remove the annoying man at the outside of the door of the hall, and were overpowered by policemen and citizens, the sacredly secret conclave were thunderstruck when they saw the intruders, and Sister Nancy Clover, who had the floor, thought the world was coming to an end. But upon seeing that it was only a crowd of police officers and private citizens, she exclaimed in a loud and dignified voice: "Gentlemen, and should-be guardians of the peace, what means this tumultuous intrusion upon the holy meditations of a docile and law-abiding religious people? By whose authority do you force your way into our sacred hall this hour of the night?" I paused for an answer. This womanly speech rather took the policemen back, but the citizens, it seemed, were not to be so easily silenced, when one of them said: "Miss Nancy Clover, we have come here by the authority of one of the religious denominations, whose most prominent members know some of the black deeds that are transacted in this place, and who have suspicion that Deacon Rob Stew and Reverend Joe Pier have been foully dealt with by those who belong to this institution. Sir, do you know that these are serious charges, and that before you intrude yourselves in such a peculiar manner, you should have proof to sustain yourselves? And now I ask you to produce your warrant and proofs for the purpose of sustaining this assault upon our sacred rights. And if you cannot produce them, I order the brethren to use all the means in their power to eject you from this hall, if you go not voluntarily, as, I hesitate not, you came here." "I again wait for an answer," said Nancy Clover, with authority and vim. Silence reigned for several minutes, when the heroic sister continued: "I am compelled to conclude that you were not lawfully authorized to intrude yourselves into this hall. Therefore, I order you to depart instantly, or take the consequences. As we have no proof at hand—" "Nor a warrant to arrest any one," interrupted Nancy Clover. "Therefore, you would better leave instantly, and thank God and this brotherhood if you do not get your deserts for this breach of the peace." "Never mind that, Miss Clover," continued the citizen spokesman. "We may astonish you with proof some day, very soon, that will not be any too palatable to any of your bloody clique. Leave this instant, you miserable rioters, and, as for these policemen, they shall learn, through us, that it is not their duty to join a cutthroat mob like you to break the peace. Now, brethren, I order you to go to the armory and produce sufficient weapons to shoot these ruffians down like dogs, if they don't instantly go away and leave us in peace," said Nancy Clover. In a moment 20 or 30 brethren were armed with rifles and bayonets, who waited for their orders from Sister Nancy Clover to fire or charge with bayonets upon the intruders. she said. "Prepare to fire." Like lightning the brethren aimed at the intruders, who now scampered away much faster than they came, and the bloody conspirators were master of their own ground, who felt gleeful over the victory they obtained. Sister Nancy Clover spoke as follows: "Beloved saints, don't you see what unanimity of action, a bold face, and undaunted courage do? These villains were evidently meaning mischief, but what or how they happened to come here I cannot contrive. They were evidently suspicious that we had something to do with Brothers Pier's and Stew's absence from the religious celebration, because nothing but sickness or death could keep these faithful saints from such a religious gathering. But how did they know all about our secret work? For that man actually spoke as though he knew more than he ought to know. Can this demoniacal Dr. Juno have fathomed our brotherhood, and have spies on our track? It is a good thing that the deacon, as well as Brother Pier, is improving very rapidly, and will both soon be well, when this matter may be brought before the Court of Sessions. However, it may be wiser not to agitate anything of this kind, but time will tell best what we would better do. I shall be too happy to have Brothers Stew and Pier again with us, for counsel, and to aid our noble cause, which seems to be assailed in several new quarters." At this point of the proceedings, the physician-in-chief of the insane asylum took the floor and said: "Mr. President and beloved saints, I am fully persuaded in my own mind, from what I have lately seen, that our enemies, through the instrumentality of Dr. Juno, are gaining ground upon us rapidly, and unless we fortify ourselves by renewed efforts in all directions, we shall surely be overpowered. I do not speak thus to discourage the brotherhood, but to rivet them closer together in thought, feeling, and action, so that we will not have any more quarrels and fights amongst ourselves, which is like a house divided against itself, by depriving us of a power that we most need just now. It would astonish you to know how much trouble we have had with Miss Armington at the asylum, and the indomitable energy this young lady possesses. Why, she has almost turned the head the other week of one of our most loyal managers, and if she has that much influence with our best people, what a mighty auxiliary she would be to the cause of Dr. Juno, should she by any chance escape us." "Nonsense. You certainly do not think it possible for her to escape, do you?" asked Nancy Clover. "Well, no, but it is hard to tell what influence this innovator may bring to bear against us," said the physician-in-chief. "But does he know that Miss Armington is in the asylum?" ejaculated Sister Clover. "How could he know it?" "He knows more than some of us think," said he, "but I do not think he knows it. Still I think he suspicions it, because he has been there himself. Donner und Blitzen, I tinks you bis a set of fools, to bis so skeert. Mein Gott, I just winch unser Deacon wash bin well," exclaimed Hansen Tiefel for the first time. Chapter 48. Chapter 49 of the Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Meg Durasek. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 49. Lucinda doffs the deacon's clothes and threatens to shoot the conspirators. When Miss Lucinda Armington was fired at by Deacon Rob Stew, when they returned her to her cell, he missed her. On account of his wounded arm he could not guide the revolver, therefore the bullet barely escaped the hip of the physician-in-chief, who was frightened out of a year's strength, and who exclaimed, "I am confounded and confused at the state of things. What is the matter between you two? Will either of you explain?" Neither felt disposed to do so. The deacon felt ashamed and a little conscience-stricken, although one might suppose that his conscience was so perfectly seared that nothing could touch it, and Miss Armington was too dignified and insulted to gratify them by explaining what the reader already knows. At last the old lover of this heroic damsel said, "If you wish to know how all this came, I will tell you, after you restore to me my wearing apparel." "What, have you given your clothes to her for the purpose of allowing her to escape in this disguise?" asked the physician-in-chief. "No, indeed, I did not give them to her." "Yes, you did, coward," interrupted she. "Well, yes, I did give them to her, but not voluntarily," stammered the deacon. "I see now how it was," said one of the managers. "Will you please darken this cell, and then compel her to give me my clothes, and after I am dressed and ready to leave, I will tell you all about it," responded the deacon. The cell was now darkened, and Miss Armington was requested to dismantle and convey her disguise to the owner of it. She said, "Oh, gentlemen, do not fret yourselves about it. Here are his trappings. And now I ask him to make a hasty retreat from my presence, or I'll make the old villain sweat before he gets away." In a moment these militant lovers had their wardrobes arranged to a degree of chastity in the dark cell, when the deacon said, "I am ready, give us light. But, O Lord, how my arm aches." "Your arm?" responded the physician-in-chief. "What causes it to ache?" "Why, this she-devil of a woman shot me through it," said he. "How did she get the pistol?" asked one of the managers. "Well, brothers, I am now ready to tell you all about it. I have been in the habit of visiting her, and she treated me so savagely that I feared she would do me personal violence some time." The men laughed at this, which displeased him. "You may laugh, but I would as lief be housed up with a mad bull as with an infuriated she-devil like her." He gave her a fiendish look at this moment, which was responded with a glare from her eyes that he knew meant mischief. "Brothers, let us leave this cell. I will tell you all about this matter elsewhere," timidly said the deacon. "I would rather you would tell us all in the presence of Miss Armington, as we should like to hear what she has to say to it," ejaculated the physician-in-chief. "Will you then keep her safely away from me, for my arm is painful, and she may make an assault upon me when I tell you all," said he. The men laughed again, and Miss Armington could scarcely keep from doing the same. but she wanted to frighten the old deacon, and cure him from venturing in the future into her cell. Go on, Brother Stew, we will warrant that she shall not touch you," replied the physician in chief. "I have been to visit this woman occasionally on errands of real clarity. In fact, I loved the girl, and would have taken her from this place and made her my own wife. Therefore, you may know that I intended no harm," said the deacon. "But she abused me awfully, and the last visit preceding this one she actually threatened my life." "Cowardly cutthroat, tell the whole of it," interrupted Miss Armington. "Who has a right to speak?" continued the deacon savagely. "Well, brothers, I made up my mind that hereafter, when I would visit this modest virgin, I would carry weapons of defense. Therefore, I brought that revolver with me to-day." "How came she to possess it?" interrupted one of the men. "She took it from me as I was about to defend myself against a furious assault upon me. I should have shot her, undoubtedly, had she not knocked it from my hand, in less than the sparkle of an eye, and as quickly picked it up, and presented the muzzle of it to my breast, and vowed she would shoot me dead if I hesitated to obey her orders. I saw that she meant what she said, but still I thought she would not shoot so freely as she once used her fists upon me. But I misplaced confidence in her, which is proved by her firing a bullet through my right arm, on the least prevarication on my part to comply with her august orders. She vowed, after sending that bullet through my arm, that the next time I hesitated, when she asked me to do a thing, she would shoot me through the heart. Now, I am not a coward, but discretion—" "Ha, ha, ha!" laughed Miss Armington, whilst she interrupted him, and gave him a terribly defiant look. "Yes, laugh, you miserable she-devil, but the next time I have business with you, I will fix you so you cannot do any harm to me or any one else. Mind that," said he. "I was going to say that, under certain circumstances, discretion was the better part of valor. Therefore, I obeyed the fiend and ingrate, and trusted to Providence, and you see he has favored me." Here he gave her a look that meant victory, as he always does the elect. "You will see whom he favors if you live a little longer," interrupted Miss Armington, considerably embittered and chopfallen. "Never mind, my lady, I will be even with you yet," ejaculated the deacon, and continued: "But this she-devil was not satisfied with shooting through this arm, but ordered me immodestly to take off my coat, pants, vest, and hat, and give them to her ladyship. I even hesitated a moment, when she raised the pistol to my breast, and, undoubtedly, would have fired had I not quickly obeyed. Then she ordered me to tear a sheet to fragments and tie my own feet together, and make a loop and place my hands into it, when she had me secured as you have found me." Miss Armington kept her eye upon the pistol, after the physician in chief took it from the deacon, and with a bound she grasped it, and jumped into the corner of her cell, and said, pointing the pistol toward the deacon's head: "Now, leave speedily, all of you, or I will rid this world of a lot of the vilest cutthroats that ever breathed the breath of life." Chapter 49.
Chapter 50 of the Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jason in Panama. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 50. The Leading Bloody Conspirators at Loggerheads. Quickly the deacon moved toward the door and said, "I will go. Please put that pistol away." The physician in chief stepped forward toward Miss Armington and exclaimed, "You certainly would not fire so imprudently?" "Wouldn't I then?" she interrupted him, and instantly pointed the pistol at his face, when he dodged, and the party of conspirators left precipitately and bolted the doors behind, then repaired to the medical office, where the deacon asked the physician in chief to examine and dress his arm. Afterwards they argued as follows: "What will we do with this woman? She has that loaded revolver, and no one is safe to go to her cell whilst she has it," said one of the managers. "Ah," responded the deacon, "you do not think it so funny to have a loaded pistol pointed at your heads, but when I related my perilous adventure with this desperate girl, you thought it an excellent joke. I cannot see what has come over her. When she lived home with her father, she was a perfect lady, quiet, chaste, modest, kind, and very polite, but now see what she is. You need not wonder at the change, for she has the general's blood in her, that never knew fear or favor in time of war, and our treatment toward the poor girl is desperate war," ejaculated the physician in chief. "How many loads does that revolver hold?" "6," replied the deacon, "but I only had 5 loaded." "Let me see, how many shots have been fired since she took it from you?" asked one of the men. "She fired 3 downstairs, 1 at the deacon, and the deacon 1 at her. That makes the 5," said the physician in chief. "Surely, if you are certain that she fired 3 times downstairs, the pistol must now be empty. Therefore her threats were barren, but she as little knew that as we did," responded the deacon. "I am glad that I am safely away from where she is, and I do not know that I will ever risk my life in her presence again, unless I first chain her securely." "Oh, brother Stew, you would certainly not be so cruel as to do that," angrily interposed the sympathetic manager. "Wouldn't I then?" continued the deacon. "Well, I am not so sure but that I should be tempted to do anything to revenge myself on her for the humiliation to which she has subjected me. She is a perfect devil! I never could have believed that the female lived who dared do as she did. I am astonished, angered, and pleased with her heroism. Ye gods, what would not such a woman be worth as a wife, if I only could by some means gain her affections?" "Dear brother, never dream of gaining that lady's affections, because such stock as she would never forget the injury you have done her. Moreover, she is fired to redoubled energy by the love she bears that Dr. Juno. She is your lifelong foe, and would send you to glory rather than be happy with you, or even see you happy," ejaculated the physician in chief. "I don't believe all you say, because if she had desired my death, she could have taken my life after she had me bound and gagged," said the pious Deacon Stew. "She had other fish to fry. To escape was her ambition, and not to kill you. Moreover, she believes that your conscience will prevent you from being happy, and she may have thought far enough to have doubted if she could escape. And she wants you to live, she said, to see you suffer by the vengeance that her lover will visit upon you," said the physician in chief. "Bah!" responded the deacon, "the vengeance that her lover, the heretic Juno, will visit upon me I do not fear. Far distant is the day when he will have that satisfactory opportunity to wreak vengeance on me." "Do not be too sure of that, dear brother," responded the sympathetic manager, for Dr. Juno is making rapid strides toward gaining immense popularity. What, are you one of his sympathizers? Do you doubt our success in finally overcoming this innovator, and how dare you connive with him?" ejaculated the deacon. "Oh, my brave deacon, who skulks from a little woman, you should not be quite so pompous and self-conceited. You do not now have me in Tabernacle Hall, where you are monarch of all you survey, but even there some of these days you will get yourself taken down, mark my words," said the sympathetic manager, who was in love with Miss Armington. "May the curse of the Almighty strike you deaf and dumb for this secession. You are a very dangerous man to be trusted with the secrets of our sacredly secret conclave, and I will see that your case will receive early attention. Remember Harry Gossamer, the apostate," furiously interposed Deacon Stew. "Gentlemen, or brothers, this is neither the time nor place to discuss and quarrel over matters that are part and parcel of our conclave and holy cause. Therefore I charge you, be silent and do not fight amongst yourselves, or surely the downfall of our house is not far in the distant," responded the physician in chief. "It is my duty to chastise any renegade brother who has taken our solemn oath and is familiar with all the inner workings of our cause, and this sympathizer of the Juno crowd must be summarily handled, or surely the sainthood will suffer through his apostasy," exclaimed the deacon. "Better be moderate, brother Stew," said the physician in chief, which aggravated the domineering deacon, when he said, "Well, I shall require an explanation at our next meeting at Tabernacle Hall, concerning the peculiar conduct of both of you; and as for Miss Armington, I will pay her another visit before long, and show her my power. There is something going on that I cannot comprehend," said the deacon. "I should not wonder but you could not comprehend the browbeating and personal chastisement that the little lady upstairs gave you. You want something similar some of these days, by the brethren, to show you your proper place, you cowardly tyrant," ejaculated the sympathetic manager. The deacon was fairly foaming at his mouth with rage, but what could he do with his lame arm except grin and bear the insults that he received in this asylum? It will be remembered that at the following meeting, as already described, the deacon and Reverend Joe Pier got a solid beating, which was partly caused by the sympathetic manager, and which nearly cost the pious deacon's life for his temerity. These brethren parted with rather conflicting sentiments and bitter feelings toward each other, a thing that must have pleased the guardian angels of Dr. Juno and company. End of chapter 50.
Chapter 51 of the Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Meg Turasek. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 51. Nancy Clover lecturing Deacon Stew. Deacon Rob Stew and Reverend Joe Pier were confined 3 weeks in the secret chamber of Tabernacle Hall, suffering from the terrible beating that the saintly brethren dealt them so generously, without money and without price. The deacon suffered immensely, was delirious and in agony for several days, and when he came to his senses again, Sister Nancy Clover had several quiet discussions with him, in which she counseled him to be more moderate and cautious in his deportment toward the saints. Otherwise he would prove the worst enemy to the cause, by being overzealous and too severe. He did not feel disposed to agree with his beloved Sister Nancy Clover, and said, "You are like all the rest, giving me advice that is not sought for. Therefore I do not value it, hence shall not heed it." If you folks had our holy cause as much at heart as I have, you would be equally zealous in promulgating its advancement, and quite as severe on delinquents, backsliders, and apostates as I am." "Brother Stew," said the sister, "you are mistaken in your logic and the course you are pursuing. You cannot drive intelligent and heroic minds as you can the lower classes of the sainthood. You should be old enough to know that, in a project like ours, a great deal of policy, in the shape of a literal flattery, is necessary to cause an energetic unanimous action. Cannot you see that this beating that you and Brother Pier received was caused by the spirit the brethren had against you for being so terribly rigid with them? Had you used a little more soft soap instead, neither you nor Joe Pier would have had any need to suffer from the terrible bruises that you have received." "If your logic is correct," said he, "why did they strike Brother Pier? He never was severe on any of them, but as mild as mush and milk, and as easily scared as a child of 5 years. But on account of being afraid of you, he invariably enforced your commands, contrary to his own convictions, which caused them to despise him, instead of hating him as they did you. Since you have been lying sick in this place, I have lectured to the brethren in such a manner as to cause them to be a unit again, and they are now all friendly toward both you and Brother Pier. I therefore pray you to take my advice, and when you come before them again, be resolute and determined, but more conciliatory than you were before, when you will strengthen the bonds of sainthood, and cause a powerful unanimous cooperation with the whole religious world," said Nancy Clover. "My beloved sister," said he, "I must acknowledge that you are the best and wisest strategist living. Therefore, I will most heartily and thankfully carry out your excellent advice. You must have labored hard and suffered much since that night of the fight." "You are right. I have done all that, but I never find it hard to conciliate the sainthood. However, I use policy, and by shrewd flattery and common sense appeals to the disturbed minds. I am always capable of exercising an influence that works favorably in carrying out the plans in anticipation. Probably you have noticed this on several occasions," responded Nancy Clover. "Yes, beloved saint, I have seen it, and had it not been for you and your wise counsel, our sacredly secret conclave would have gone to ruin long before this time. You really are an angel, worth 10,000 butterflies like the modest, fashionable women of our age. I admire a woman that can act her part dauntlessly in life's great conflict. There are only 2 females on this earth, that I am acquainted with, whom I admire. You are the one, and Miss Lucinda Armington is the other," seriously said the deacon. "Bah!" exclaimed Sister Nancy Clover, with a contemptuous sneer on her countenance. "What do you see in her to admire? She is a poor, weak, silly fool of a chit, and I am astonished at you to admire the one that despises you, and is your mortal enemy." "I cannot help admiring and loving the little imp," said the deacon, "because she has the mettle of a heroine and fire of an infuriated tigress, noble qualities in a woman, if she knows how to use them, as Miss Armington does." "Indeed!" ejaculated Nancy Clover. "And when and where did you detect all these excellent qualities in that despicable creature? It must have been since we had her carried to the asylum." "Certainly. "It has been since she is confined in the asylum," said the deacon. He now related his adventures with Miss Armington, with which the reader is familiar, when Sister Nancy said: "So you admire and love the character of a woman who can work her own way through calm and storm? Well, brother, I admire you for having so much good sense, for it would be better for the race of mankind if women could learn to stand upon their own legs. I mean their own inalienable rights, and although I hate Miss Armington, because she is our enemy, yet I nevertheless think more of her for having thrashed you, and also for that most ludicrous exchange of apparel. Really, beloved brother, the latter incident seems very ludicrous to me, although it may have been almost death to you. Yet, as you admire the heroine, for such she is, in spite of everything, you must look upon it in the same light that I do." "Truly, dear sister," responded the deacon, "I often laugh to myself about the ridiculous picture I must have made. If any one could have seen the whole affair, he would, undoubtedly, have enjoyed it amazingly at my expense, as the boys did at the bullfrogs." "How was that?" said she. "Did you never hear that story? Several boys were throwing stones at the frogs, which was fun for them, but death to the frogs." "Surely, your case was not unlike the frogs, and you were a lucky frog to have gotten off so easily," said Sister Clover. "Yes, dear sister, but you know that the Lord always favors his elect, and, although I have received several assaults recently, you can readily see the finger of Jehovah each time pointing to my side, which saved my life in the most perilous conflicts, and I have unbounded faith that God will protect me on any occasion," exclaimed the deacon. "Do not be too sure of all that, good brother, for although my faith in God and in our holy cause is equal to anybody's, yet there are certain fixed laws which He has made, and which we are ordained to learn and obey, else we cannot stand erect and safe in life or death," said she. "Hut, tut, dear sister, do you know that you are advocating Dr. Juno's cause when you speak that way? I hope you are unlike one of the managers of this insane asylum, who was a great admirer of Miss Armington, and is evidently in sympathy with this heretic," ejaculated the deacon. "Truth is mighty, Brother Stew," said she, "but I will not commit myself in public or before the sainthood, as you did, to receive a furious pummeling," laughed she. "Really, you are a trump. Say or do what I will, you always catch me in some corner, which plainly shows that you are the better man of us two. Therefore, I shall heed your excellent advice now and in the future," exclaimed the deacon. Brother Joe Pier came into the room, when the conversation was changed. Chapter 51. Chapter 52 of the Social War of 1900, or the Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 52. Lucinda bites Deacon Stew's ear nearly off. When Deacon Rob Stew, the physician-in-chief, and managers were suddenly driven out of Miss Armington's cell by the handsome maneuver of the young heroine with the empty pistol, the deacon was determined to pay her a visit as soon as convenient, some evening, when he could bribe a few of the keepers to handcuff her for him. Then surely he would be master over the proud and fearless girl. However, he did not expect that he would be so roughly handled by his own people before he would have the pleasure of treating himself to a coercive interview with Miss Armington. As soon as he was right well again, he made his evening visit to the asylum, and bribed George and William to join him at 8 o'clock that evening, to go with him to her cell. And said he to them, "I have a pair of excellent handcuffs here, which I want you to put securely on her wrists, joining her hands behind her back, so that she cannot strike me with them. And be sure that you graduate them so she cannot slip them off. By this screw you can make them larger or smaller, and when you have done it, come out, and I will go into her. And when I have done with her, I will come out and let you go in and remove the cuffs again. I also want you to turn the gas on in her cell, and light a glimmer, so I can have light, should I desire it. Now go in, seize and handcuff her." "But should she scream, and we be detected?" responded one of them. "Never mind," said his deaconship. "She will not scream. She is not of that sort. But she may fight you like an infuriated demon. Therefore, do not give her an idea of your intentions until you have an opportunity to grasp her hands." "Oh, never fear," said George. "We understand how to handle strange lunatics. Why should we hesitate or fail to manage a weak lady like her?" laughing at the absurdity of such caution by the deacon. "All right," interposed the deacon. "Only you secure her before you come out of her cell. One thing more. She has that revolver in her possession, with which she shot at some of you several weeks since, but it is empty. Of this I assure you. Therefore, should she threaten to shoot you with it, be not afraid of that." "Enough!" ejaculated they simultaneously, and made their ingress to her presence. The pure and innocent maiden was sitting by her table, with her elbows resting upon it, and her hands to her face, whilst her eyes were turned toward the skylight overhead, from which the light of day still caused a glimmer to descend into her cell. Suddenly she heard the presence of George and William, when she sprang to her feet and ejaculated, "Who's there? And what do you want at this unseasonable hour of the day?" They advanced toward her, without saying a word, when she said, fiercely, "Stop, or I'll shoot you." "Your threats are barren, for your pistol is empty. We know what we are about," exclaimed George, and fearlessly advanced, when she dealt him a blow with the heavy revolver that sent him spinning like a wheel. William now tried his hand, when he also received a dangerous blow on the top of his head, which struck him dumb to the floor. Having thus disabled her enemies, she boldly stood still, preparing herself for a second blow, should they advance again. In a few moments George scrambled up and said, "Miss Armington, we do not wish to harm you, nor did we come here of our own accord to insult you, but we were ordered here—" "Who ordered you? And what to do?" interrupted the heroine in a defiant air. Silence reigned for several minutes, when a deep groan came from the place where George lay, when George said, "You have killed him." "What is that to me? And I kindly tell you, unless you leave me, I will kill you both. Mark me," said she. The deacon heard that a terrible scuffle was going on inside of the cell, when he opened the outside door, however, carefully allowing the inner gate to remain locked. He saw William sitting on the floor in a position as though he was going to rise to his feet, but was unable to do so. George was standing in front of William, parleying with Miss Armington, whose back was turned toward the door. The deacon now made a noise as if he was going to come in, which caused Miss Armington to turn partly around, and when she saw someone coming she felt lost, as she could not guard before and behind herself. Therefore, she expected to be overpowered, but she made up her mind to warm the monsters before they could secure her. As she turned toward the door, George grasped both her arms from behind, which made her almost powerless. Still, she tussled a good while with him before he succeeded in handcuffing her. She knocked his handcuffs twice to the floor, and had not William been able to put the first one on, he probably never would have gotten them on. William was still stupefied, and it was all he could do to fasten the cuff on her delicate wrist. Of course, when this first arm was secured, George had an easy time to fasten the second one, which, when done, he let go of the young lady's person. When the deacon saw this, he asked, "Have you handcuffed her securely?" "Yes," replied George. "Then I will come in," said he. "Oh, you most miserable coward! I thought it was your pusillanimous work," ejaculated the persecuted young lady. "Truly, miss, I made up my mind to be even with you," said the deacon, and giving the boys orders to leave, he closed the door, whilst all this time Miss Armington was very docile, acting as though she would submit to anything almost. She thought, "I'll throw the pious coward off his guard until I see an opportunity to punish him." The saintly deacon now began to abuse her. He blackguarded her, said that he thought he would get her in a position that he could easily manage her, and he now had her, that he intended to often visit her this hour of the night, when he could have the services of the men to handcuff her for him, and, continued he, "I mean to use you just as I please, since you refuse to become my wife. However, I will again say that if you will voluntarily marry me, I will not force you to become as good as my wife. Now choose between the two, for I shall conquer you." "Do you think so?" said she. "I know so," interposed His Holiness, "for the Lord is always on the side of His elect." At this moment he placed his arm around her waist and pulled her to his breast, she submitting gracefully, only she turned her face aside when he kissed her on the cheek. Suddenly she took his long ear into her mouth and bit it until the deacon fairly yelled, "Murder! Murder!" End of chapter 52. Recording by Meg Turasek. Chapter 53 of the Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Meg Turasek. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 53. Dr. Juno's stirring speech to the Secret Order of Naturalists. Dr. Victor Juno promised to lead his men through these devils' ground, and on the night of meeting for that purpose, he spoke to the brothers of the Order of Naturalists as follows: "Dear brothers, you all know what is incumbent upon every one of us in these troublous times, when the leaders of piety meet in secret conclave continually, for the purpose of subjugating those who behold God in nature, and who recognize nature to be the language through and by which an infinite, beneficent, and immutable Creator speaks to us in scientific arts. It is time that we gird on the armor, not only of defense, but of aggression. We have been stigmatized by these bloody conspirators as heretics, infidels, obscene libelists, seducers of innocent women, cheats, profaners of the temple of God, and, in sooth, epitaphs and acts have been heaped upon us in public, private, by pen, tongue, muscle, and the knife. Yea, dungeons and their concomitants were made the recipients of our bodies, whilst we were robbed of every right that is inalienable to man and beast. Therefore, as we have never taught nor practiced anything that would injure or defile body, soul, or spirit of friend or foe, young or old, male or female, the time has arrived for us to act bravely in the aggression, until we strike terror to the hearts of these vile leaders of the blind, whom these comparatively few demons lead on to the work of dividing and subdividing the Holy Church of God, until hosts of mean, bigoted sectarians claim to be the elect of God, when they are the followers of false prophets, false Christs, blind leaders, and by deceiving themselves, and are made the tools of the various cutthroats that ever disgraced God's footstool. I ask each one of you then, do we love our scientific, progressive teachings and an infallible Creator as much as these vile vipers do their master, the devil, and his work? Do we fear them who can destroy the body, but cannot harm the soul of the just? Do we assume to be men, whilst we permit these serfs of the devil to usurp all power on earth? Or will we strike for our rights, our homes, God, and fixed law? These few leading conspirators misguide and jeopardize the lives of the millions, who believe them to be the oracles of heaven, when they are the very ones who rob them of the knowledge of God's fixed laws, deprive them of natural, Christian freedom, and use them as the veriest dupes to carry out their own hellish work, whilst they have no more love for them than imps have for angels. I have thousands of times lain in my bed wondering how it was possible for these pharisaical leaders to hold the sincerely inclined religious people in such ignorance of God's hallowed laws, and in bondage to sectarian monopoly. God is generous. Jesus is generous. Nature is bountiful, and by uniting all the sound sense that is contained in the Bible, we must conclude as rational creatures that salvation must be the acme of all the arts and sciences, but, yet, the examples and precepts of Christ, who is the Alpha and Omega of obedience to fixed natural law, are as nothing to the sectarian Christians. Let us worship God as much as possible as Jesus did, by good works, which center in the improvement of the race, the amelioration of those whom we are commanded to love as ourselves. And let us comprehend that we cannot carry out that holy injunction until we make natural the habits of the whole people. Yes, physiology must become the catechism of the nations. Brothers, there were 3 kinds of slavery, 2 of which still exist, that must be abolished before our cause can have free scope. First and least was Negro slavery. Second, social, including martial and sectarian slavery. And third, and worst, slavery of the eating, drinking, sexual, and filthy lucre propensities. The least of these 3 slaveries has been abolished by the sword. The next to the least is the slavery of the wife to her husband, who must bear his embraces, children, obey him, but does not belong to herself nor own the property that she earns with her own hands. Yet she must nourish his children at her own breast and feed them, whilst the man may be slave to rum, tobacco, licentiousness, etc. But the same selfish sectarian spirit that sanctions this social selfdom also enthralls its misled victim. But the slavery that the order of naturalists aim to abolish is the king of slavery, because it undermines the constitutions of the race so gradually that few can be made believe that it defiles the temple of God, deteriorates the blood, rots or petrifies the bodily tissues, thereby scientifically hardening the heart, causing the spirit of selfishness and the propensities of men, women, and children to master the moral nature of the race, whose love is so cold on account of this worst kind of slavery. Therefore, our cause, which is so offensive to the bloody conspirators and their followers, strikes at the root of all evil, which, when understood and adhered to, will abandon, of its own free accord, the lesser evils, and give each person capacity to master his own spirit, when he and she will become bona fide legislators or voters, and through love to God and mankind will govern everything with an eye single to God's glory. Thus, the millennial dawn will appear, and the image of God will be substituted for the image of the devil, or image of ugliness and disease, and love will be free amongst the inhabitants of the earth, who will be slave to no seat, that takes no private road, but looks through nature up to nature's God, pursues the chain which links the immense design, joins heaven and earth, and mortal and divine, and knows where faith, law, morals, all began, all end in love to God and love to man. In conclusion, brethren, let me reiterate that with these Christ-like sentiments and right on our side, we are clad in the armor of heaven. Hence, knowing that we are right, we can fight to the hilt, if it be necessary to do so, to abolish the worst of slavery. The genuine Christian will always sacrifice the good of the few for the many, will sacrifice himself, if necessary, for the cause of God and his wonderful works and fixed laws. Therefore, when we meet the foe tonight, and danger stares us in the face, remember that our cause it is just, and this be our motto: in God is our trust, and the banner of freedom and triumph shall wave when our work is completed through God's power in the brave. Then, onward and upward, let your prayer of might be a bugbear of death to the bloody conspirators, until they are ousted from their lofty reign of terror, and are made to respect God's fixed law of nature, or are degraded and banished from the field of human life. End of chapter 53. Recording by Meg Turasek. Chapter 54 of the Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Meg Turasek. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 54. Dr. Juno mobs the insane asylum and frees Lucinda. Precisely at 9 o'clock, Dr. Juno started with his 100 drilled men, who were armed to their teeth, in squads, for the insane asylum. He told them that he would stay with the leading company, and after one of them would gain access to the outer gate of the asylum, he would march his squad speedily into the yard, bind and gag the gatekeeper, or whoever else would be there. A sign would be given to the rest to follow. Afterwards he would general them as he thought it best. They reached the outer gate at 9:30, and entered it easily, and after securing the keeper at that post, and the whole regiment was admitted, Dr. Juno ordered 6 men to guard that place, when he marched with his company or squad toward the principal door of the main building. The same had already been locked for the night. The bell was rung gently, which caused an old drowsy fellow to open it abruptly and asked, "Who rings the bell this time of night? This is not the door to receive insane folks." "Is it not?" said Dr. Juno, and added, "Seize him," which also meant gag and bind him. The door was guarded by 2 men, and after 25 active brethren were inside, the doctor ordered a captain to take the balance of the men and guard the outside building, permitting no one to enter or escape short of the penalty of death, and to be ready, should a signal be given, for their attendance inside. The doctor now said to his men, "I think we had better secure the officers of the asylum first, and imprison them by bolting them securely in cells, or use ropes on them. Where is Thomas, who is acquainted with this whole establishment?" "Here I am, brother," said he. "Show us to the officers' apartments," responded Dr. Juno. In an instant they stood before the physician-in-chief's office, which was lit up, and upon a knock on the door, a sharp voice answered, "Who is there?" "I am here," replied Thomas, who imitated the voice of one of the keepers, whom he knew. "Wait a moment until I unbolt the door," said the physician-in-chief. In a moment the office was filled with soldiers, when the physician-in-chief reached for a bell-pull and asked, "Who are you, and what means this intrusion?" "Not so fast, sir," said Dr. Juno. "It is not necessary for you to pull that bell, neither is it necessary to tell you who I am. I am no ways disguised, like some of my enemies, when they are on errands of deviltry. We are here on an errand of justice and mercy, not to harm anyone, if we can obtain what we came for voluntarily. But if resistance is made, we shall kill those who come in our path like vermin. Mark me," authoritatively spoke Dr. Juno. "You are Dr. Juno," said the prisoner. "But what is your pleasure?" "We want Miss Lucinda Armington," commanded Dr. Juno. "Miss Lucinda Armington!" ejaculated the prisoner, feigning surprise. "I cannot give you what I have not got to give." "Here, old viper, none of that," said Dr. Juno. "Gag and bind the villain, and see that you handle him rigidly, for the old rogue shall learn how it feels to be a prisoner, for his lying." "Murder! cried he, but before he got it out the second time, a piece of an old rag was jammed into his gustatorial apartment. They let him lie on the floor of his office, left it, and locked the door, and took the key. "Lead on, Thomas, in the direction of the rest of the officers," commanded Dr. Juno. Soon they arrived at the general office, where the business of the asylum is issued from, and there they met 4 of the night officials, who were always on the alert for danger. Dr. Juno spoke in a commanding manner. "Gentlemen, we want you to surrender yourselves peaceably as prisoners of war, when no harm shall befall you." "We are not so sure of that, my brave hero," said an impudent voice, who jerked the alarm bell immensely, which was as quickly replied to by Dr. Juno, who said to his men, "The half of you will take care of the outsiders, and the balance charge upon these men." The man that sounded the alarm and spoke opened a table drawer, and took a revolver therefrom, which he levelled at Dr. Juno's heart. But, before he could fire, Dr. Juno gave him a terrific blow with his huge fist on the temple, which levelled him, and in a minute every man was securely done up, as was the fashion. The outside men, however, did not succeed so well, as their numbers were in the minority as compared to the keepers and general help of the place. But as soon as Dr. Juno made his appearance on the spot, he said, "Soldiers, fire upon anyone who makes any advances." This caused an inclination to create a stampede. When Dr. Juno saw this, he again ordered, "Any man that moves to leave the place, shoot him dead also." All stood still and trembled with terror. Dr. Juno saw this and said, "You are the hired servants of this hellhole, and I want you to understand that we will not harm you if you obey my orders. But if you refuse, you may meet your God quickly for disobeying me, for I am hard-hearted and will be observed." "What do you wish us to do?" asked one. "I want you all to surrender yourselves," said Dr. Juno, "and show us an apartment wherein we can securely imprison you for a short period." "Take us to the main cell, which is empty," said the same prisoner. They were all conducted into that cell, which was first inspected by Dr. Juno as to its security. After they had entered, Dr. Juno asked them, "Have you got the key to Miss Armington's cell, in the 3rd story?" Silence reigned, and no one seemed to answer, when he continued, "Do you refuse to speak? I want you to understand that I will not show you any quarters, provided you resist me by word or deed. Therefore, answer instantly, who has that key?" "I have," exclaimed a burly fellow. "Here it is." End of chapter 54. Recording by Meg Turasek. Chapter 55 of the Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Meg Turasek. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 55. Meeting of Victor and Lucinda in her cell. It was George who had the key, and who gave it to Dr. Juno, when they bolted the cell doors and left 3 soldiers to guard the prisoners. One of the keepers escaped the vigilance of Dr. Juno, and passed around through another corridor to the physician-in-chief's office, with the intention of arousing an alarm. But when he got to the office door, he found it locked. He then called, knocked, and listened betimes, when he heard a muffled voice saying, "I am locked in. Get a key and come in." He tried his keys, and found that one of them unlocked the door. He rushed to the spot where the prisoner lay, and, removing his shackles, said, "Heaven! Doctor, all the keepers and help are arrested and imprisoned in the main cell. What shall we do?" "You leave the asylum by the rear gate, and arouse the neighborhood, and be sure you do it quietly. In the meantime, I will see what I can do," said the physician-in-chief. Very foolishly the guards, who were left to protect all the bound, gagged, and locked-up prisoners, paid no attention to the doctor's office, esteeming the physician-in-chief safe enough for as long as they cared for his incarceration. But they missed it a little in this conclusion. Dr. Juno, after receiving the key to Miss Armington's cell, asked Thomas to lead the way to it, and when the lover speedily threw the doors, 4 in number, open, and appeared in Miss Armington's presence, what should he see but a demon inclining over the poor girl, who was all bloody. Dr. Juno hurled him aside as though he were a flea, and picked the prostrate prisoner and beloved of his soul up from the floor, and laid her gently on the bed, thinking that she was dead. But he soon saw signs of life reappearing, and in a few minutes she asked, "Oh God, where am I?" And screaming with all her might, "Go away, you fiend, or I'll murder you yet!" Dr. Juno kissed her on the forehead, and exclaimed, "My precious darling, your own betrothed is by your side. Fear nothing." She opened her eyes with amazement, and hysterically stammered, "Great God, is it you? Oh, let this not be a dream. I pray, great Father, let this not be a dream that will vanish with the awakening of my slumbers." No, my precious one, it is not a dream, but a bona fide reality," ejaculated Dr. Juno, with immense tears in his eyes, whilst he dropped his face upon her neck and wept like a child, until he shook from head to foot. Miss Armington came to realize that her own beloved Victor was holding her in his own dear arms, when she exclaimed, "Where's Deacon Stew?" "What?" thundered Dr. Juno, whilst he sprang away from the young lady, and grasped the bloody deacon in his hands, and dashed him upon the floor like a dog, whilst he was just going to jump upon his face with his heels, when Miss Armington said, "Oh, Victor, come here." When he went to her, she replied, "Do not murder him, my dear Victor. Leave him to heaven and the wrath of his Maker." "Darling, your opportune words have saved his miserable life. But what has he done to you that you are so bloody?" "The blood that you see on me came from his body, not from mine," said she. "He had me handcuffed, and then he insulted me." "What, handcuffed you?" interrupted he. "Yes, and they hurt my wrists severely. Please remove them, dear Victor." "Great Heaven, you handcuffed, and I did not see it. What a stupid fellow I am," said Victor. "But I will murder this foul demon. Soldiers, bind him like a felon. Place his hands uncomfortably behind his back. Look, like this poor young lady's are, only make them tighter, so he may receive his reward." "Have you the keys to these handcuffs, old hypocrite?" asked Dr. Juno of the deacon. "No, sir, I have not," stammered he. "Who, then, has got them? Be quick, or you'll die on the spot," exclaimed Dr. Juno. "George has got them," responded the deacon. "George is the man who gave you the cell keys," said Thomas to Dr. Juno. "Oh, yes, he gave me a bunch of keys. I guess he was wise enough to have added the cuff keys. Let me see. Here they are, I think. Yes. All right, my darling. Free once more from the shackles of these bloody conspirators, who shall be tortured nigh unto death, but shall yet live to feel their degradation whilst they writhe in agony," ejaculated Dr. Juno. "Mercy, oh, mercy, be merciful," prayed the deacon. "Merciful, ha, ha, ha! Merciful to you, a fiend, a carrion monster, a cutthroat, a ravisher of innocent, helpless women. You dare to ask for mercy at my hands again, and I will cut you to pieces by slow degrees, and cauterize every incision. You infamous daredevil, or rather leprous coward. May the double curse of God fall on your pestiferous head, exclaimed Dr. Juno with terrific emphasis. A noise was heard downstairs, when Dr. Juno continued, "We will away from this place. Soldiers, take this scab on decent people, the deacon, to my office, but gag him before you remove him." "I pray you, do not gag me. I will keep silent, come what will or may, if you do not gag me," stammered the deacon. "Silence, old ruffian. Men of your stamp are never to be trusted. I know you too well. I know of too many foul deeds that you were ringleader, or commander of. So gag the fine deacon, and load him on the express wagon, and haul him direct to my office, and 6 of you guard him there until I come. Here, take these handcuffs with you. I shall use them on him as a memory-strengthening plaster for the pious deacon," responded Dr. Juno. At this moment a soldier came upstairs, and said to Dr. Juno, "General Juno, the physician-in-chief, whom you had gagged and bound, has disappeared, and another man escaped from the asylum by a back entrance. I am afraid they may arouse the neighborhood and give us trouble." End of chapter 55. Recording by Meg Turasek.
Chapter 56 of The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Pat Navarre. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 56. Dr. Juno offers amnesty to the conspirators. Dr. Juno offers amnesty to the conspirators. Dr. Juno and his regiment left the asylum about 1:00 a.m. without any trouble, with the exception that he did not get to see the physician-in-chief, to whom he intended to give some sound advice before he would free him. However, he gave it to the 4 night managers, who still continued in fetters, with the exception of the gags. They were removed for the purpose of taking the oath that Dr. Juno proposed. He spoke to them as follows: "You belong to this fine orthodox hellhole, and undoubtedly are members of the sacredly secret conclave of the bloody conspirators, and therefore I hold you as my mortal enemies. Hence, expect no mercy from me, but instantly answer me such questions as I shall ask you." Pointing to each separately, he continued, "Are you a member of that secret conclave?" "I am," said one. "Are you one also?" asked Dr. Juno of another. "I shall not answer that question," said the one now addressed. "You will not answer indeed, but I think you will, and I will give you half a minute to do so by my watch," responded Dr. Juno, holding his watch in his hand. "No answer? The half a minute is up. Soldiers, use the tormentors on this scoundrel until he is ready to answer." The soldiers applied 3 tormentors to him, which consisted of thin ropes with handles to the ends. The ropes were put around a limb and then twisted by the handles until the victim cried enough or died. Whilst the soldiers were torturing the stubborn man, the doctor asked the remaining 2 whether they belonged to the said conclave, who freely answered in the affirmative. The torments acted like a charm upon the stubborn man, who said that he did not belong to said conclave. "I do not believe you," said Dr. Juno, "and I tell you now, for once only, that I will brook no lying from any man, friend or foe, for if you lie in saying that you do not belong to said conclave, and after I ascertain from these men that you do belong, I will torture you worse than for anything else." Then I'll speak the truth. I do belong to the conclave, said he. So I thought, responded Dr. Juno. Remove the tormentors, and now let me warn each one of you not to be rebellious. But answer me in everything truthfully, for I shall ask you many questions only to try your veracity, questions that I know if true or not. Also, do as I command. As you are ready to hear my advice, I charge you to be attentive, that you may hear and understand what I say to you, else your own lives may be made to pay the penalty of your recklessness. This advice is for your own good, and is nothing of a secret order. Therefore be not alarmed, but act like men of honor and turn from error. You are undoubtedly aware that both myself and Miss Lucinda Armington have been abducted, some time since, and were cast into this charnel house by your bloody clique. And you must also know that Miss Armington was still confined within these walls until this present moment. I came here to liberate her, not to injure you, nor for the purpose of revenging myself, but to serve God and my fellow creatures, to save even your own souls and bodies from further degradation and despair. And whilst I am compelled to be cruel to the perverse and prejudiced, I am nevertheless ready to receive the vilest penitent sinner to my ranks, and would rejoice were I capable to save every bloody conspirator. However, such men as Deacon Rob Stew and your physician-in-chief are very self-righteous and hardened sectarian blasphemers, who must be severely dealt with to bring them to their true sense of understanding things. But I may say to you that whilst my summary punishment of yourselves is severe, and may seem no better than that which was heaped upon myself, Miss Armington, Harry Gossamer, Jemmy, and others by your clique, still the object is different. I visit chastisement upon you and my enemies, not from jealousy, malice, selfishness, or worldly power, but for the purpose of abolishing a crying evil, for the purpose of saving mankind from the yoke of partisan and sectarian bondage, that love to God and mankind may rule his kingdom in accordance with the generous teachings of Jesus and the infallibility of nature's laws. Therefore I offer you, even you, my bitter enemies and prisoners, the same boon of salvation that I claim for myself. And if you will repent of what is past and turn from the error of your ways, and join God's rational Christians, we will welcome you with open hearts and hands, as our precious Master, Christ Jesus, pardoned and accepted sinners who forsook their evil ways, and took up their cross and followed him. To me, it makes no difference whether you and your bloody clique publish to the world what has this night transpired in this place or not, because if you do so, it will cause a speedy expose of your own deviltry, and prove to the world that I have been the friend to humanity, whilst you persecuted me to your utmost capacity for serving God and mankind. I now ask you to repeat the following oath, which you dare not violate. But before I will propose it, I am willing to pause for a moment for the purpose of learning from you if either or all of you have made up your minds to forsake these bloody conspirators. Therefore speak. I would be willing to do so, but I was compelled to take the solemn oath of the said conclave, which is awful, and it would be dangerous for any member to violate it, independent of the hereafter, responded the man who first said he belonged to said conclave. You must bear in mind that God will forgive anything that the penitent man will ask by returning to good works, by ceasing to do evil and learning to do right. And as for the danger to your own life, I would also have you to know that it is tenfold greater in the place you stand now than it would be were you to discard the shackles of a demoniacal serfdom and become a free man, ejaculated Dr. Juno. Will you give me time to think over this matter? Asked he. Yes, sir, your own time. But I shall now ask each of you to separately pronounce the oath after me. I solemnly swear without mental reservation that I will never more conspire against the followers of Dr. Juno, nor against him personally, so help me God. And further, should I ever be found to do so, I will not ask for mercy, but receive my reward according to the deeds committed in the body, and this I solemnly swear, by my body, soul, and spirit. May the Lord help me to keep this vow. Amen. Now, misled brothers, farewell. But be kind enough to acquaint your leaders of what has transpired, and tell them that this advice is also meant for each of them. End chapter. Chapter 57 of The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Pat Navarre. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers by Simon Landis. Chapter 57. Lucinda free and at her own home again. After Dr. Juno had finished his lecture to the 4 prisoners, he conveyed Miss Lucinda Armington to a carriage in waiting for this purpose, and carried her to her own old home, which was still in possession of Pat O'Connor and Judy McCrea. And when he reached the house, he ordered the footman to ring the bell and arouse the servants. Shortly after causing several strong pulls upon the doorbell, Pat O'Connor ran his head out at a second-story window and exclaimed, "Who be's there, and what do ye want at this time o' night?" "Pat, come down and call Judy also to be with you." "I have your mistress here. You certainly know me, Square," said Dr. Juno. Square was a secret word by which Pat and the doctor were to know each other if ever found in danger where they could not recognize each other. "Och, be Sant Patrick, it be's Dr. Juno," ejaculated Pat to himself, and he donned his garb in a moment, and aroused his Judy darlin', shouting gleefully, "Judy darlin', Judy, och, Judy begorra. Dr. Juno be's downstairs wid our Mistress Lucinda. Come quick." Judy sprang to her feet like lightning and exclaimed, "Pat, ye air a dreamin', and sure there be's no truth in it, but ye'll git into trouble ef ye ain't careful. Mind that for a warnin'. Judy darlin', come, and don't be a foolin' wid your betrothed and mistress, ye slappy goose. Come, I say." "Yis, Pat, I'm a comin' straight," interrupted Judy. Pat opened the door courageously, for he knew for a certainty that it was Dr. Juno. But Judy was scared and suspicious until she saw Miss Armington and Dr. Juno, when she bellowed forth in terrific hysterics of delight, grasping Miss Armington around the neck. "They lord, they lord, they lord, och, me swate lady, och, me swate lady, am I awake? Och, me sweet lady come back, and for sure. But she looks so thin and pale. Och, me swate lady." "Judy, and ye make a fool of yourself," snivelled Pat O'Connor, whilst Dr. Juno and Miss Armington both wept with joy and gratitude. It was a happy moment for all around, and for once servant, mistress, and master felt as one family without distinction. The bravery of Pat and Judy, and their lasting fidelity to the welfare of their employers, supported by their faith in God's justice and in the virtue of the persecuted, made them the beloved creatures of the household. Dr. Juno broke the ice by saying, in a cheerful manner, "Well, my faithful friends, I have kept my promise." "And sure ye have," interrupted Pat, still weeping as if his Irish heart would burst. "And ye be's the greatest man livin', and be me soul I'd give me life for ye any time, so I would." "Thank you, Pat. I fully appreciate your worth and valor. But now, let Judy get something to eat and drink for her mistress whilst she reclines on this easy lounge," said Dr. Juno. "Yes, sir," responded Judy and Pat simultaneously. Miss Armington was so overcome with the joy that she experienced by the surrounding circumstances. The great delight her restoration gave to these humble and faithful servants was to her almost too much to bear without fainting dead away. She could still not yet fully realize that it was a settled truth, that she was delivered from her persecutors, and was once more in her own home, surrounded by her beloved Victor, the faithful servants, and her most affectionate father. Therefore, the first word she uttered, after Pat and Judy left her presence to procure a repast was, "Father, where is dear father?" To this question Dr. Juno was nonplussed. What could he, or what would he say quickly? He did not desire to tell her that he really was insane, nor should he tell a falsehood, so he said, "Your father, beloved Lucinda, is not at home at present, but we hope soon will be. In fact, the dear soul has been mourning your loss until he could not rest here at home, where he had your smiling company." "Dear Victor, there is something not right about poor father. Do tell me, is he dead?" she interrupted. "I see it in your countenance that something is wrong." Dr. Juno hung his head in deep grief, when she continued, "Oh, speak, beloved Victor, do not keep me in suspense. Say the worst that has befallen him. Is he dead?" "Sweet angel, he is not dead," sighed he, mournfully. "Thank God for that," she exclaimed. "But where is he?" "He went to Europe to seek you." "Is he then still in Europe?" she interposed. "No, my precious love, he is not," said he. "I see, my beloved Victor, that you tried to hide from me the real state of affairs about dear father," responded she, "but do not hold a thing back." "You love me, do you not?" asked he. "Of course I do, precious dear, but you cannot be jealous of an affectionate parent's love. No, my darling, not jealous, but grieved to tell you that he is insane. Oh God, oh God! My dear desolate father insane, and on my account, but not through any act of mine, as heaven knows," said the distressed child, weeping and mourning until she could no more. Dr. Juno went and cast his arms around her slender and half worn out form, and sent his animal magnetism into her body, whilst his love and prayer baptized her nervous center with renewed life, and soon she beheld the misery of her betrothed lover, when she said, "Oh, my long lost darling, you are everything to me, and I should rejoice and praise God for having you with me. But it seems so cruel, so very hard that my beloved, good, noble father should suffer through us." "Yes, it is my fault," he interrupted. "Had accident not thrown you in my path on that seemingly fatal day when Pat O'Connor's horses ran away, neither you nor your father would have had occasion to suffer this martyrdom." Here he ceased to speak, and wept, and shook like a leaf when the wind blows it. She at once saw that he misunderstood her, when she was aroused and exclaimed, "My dearly beloved Victor, you did not understand me. I did not mean that you are to blame. No, never, never. Oh, I beseech you, do not take this matter so much to heart." End chapter. Chapter 58 of The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Pat Navarre. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers by Simon Landis. Chapter 58. Pathetic Interview Between Lucinda and Victor. Dr. Juno raised his head and wiped away his great tears, and said, "Oh, what can I do for having brought so much misery upon you, my dear, my most precious Lucinda? My love for you is beyond the power of language to express it, but my love for God and his cause is equal to it. Therefore, I cannot see how I could have acted to have kept possession of the two things or creatures that I love far better than my own life, namely, yourself and my cause." "Noble, brave, Herculean hero, I love you a million times more for that righteous expression," interposed she. "But I have really been the cause of all the misery that you and your excellent father had to undergo. And you, dear saint, who have always had all you wanted or needed, have been taken away from everything that was delightful, and have been cast into a dungeon, been insulted, abused, and tortured on my account," ejaculated he, in great distress and earnestness. "But listen, my precious one, I have found you by the loss you speak of. Yes, for a brief period of suffering and loss of imaginary wants, I have gained a jewel that is worth more to me than kingdoms and worlds combined. Do not deem me a poor, weak chit of a thing, but look upon me as a woman, who knowing the right dare also maintain it, and if the firmament overhead falls. I have loved my father, but as long as there is life, there is also hope, and I feel now almost certain that you and I, with the help of the fixed law of a just God, will be able to calm his frenzied brain and heal him of his disease," said she. "Holy angel, you speak like an inspired oracle from heaven." "Yes, and who made me such but your noble self?" interposed she, smiling and touching him tenderly under the chin, whilst she kissed his brow. "Heaven be glorified for giving me this helpmeet. Now I am blessed. Now I am crowned with glory, and I feel that 10,000 deaths would be painless with you by my side. You, whom I looked upon as a tenderly bred and lavishly raised child of affluence, have grown an inspired seraph, who can vitalize the dormant faculties of sage and sire. You, whose talismanic power and expansive mentality can teach me what I thought no woman could know or do. You, who are worthy to become the wife of a throned monarch. How can I ever repay you for this intrinsic heroism?" said he. "Precious dear, you can repay me fully by continuing to love me, and no woman is happier than to see her lover act like a man of principle and man of honor, who would suffer and die for the right, as I am convinced you would. For you have already suffered the most cruel martyrdom, have gone through many dangers, but have been saved by a higher power than man can wield for me alone. Is this not so?" asked Miss Armington. "Yes, sweet saint, I am yours, body and soul, and yours alone forever, so help me God," responded he, whilst he pressed her to his heart. A knock at the door, when Judy announced that she had prepared such edibles as they had in the house, which they were invited to partake of. Dr. Juno conducted the young millionaires to the table, where they found everything that was healthy, palatable, and fine, and whilst they satiated the inner being, they spoke to Pat and Judy, who were as lively as bees, waiting upon their long-lost hosts. And when they had finished their meal, the persecuted lovers returned to the drawing-room, where Miss Armington, by request of her lover, told him how she was abducted, and the general treatment she had received at the asylum. She related everything to her beloved, except the last interview with the deacon, with all of which the reader is already familiar. When she had finished her recital of the exciting incidents, he said, "The deacon is a vile reptile, but you, my exquisite angel, are truly a heroine, and saint of the first water." "Do you think so, darling?" she said, giving him one of those seraphic smiles which a perfect woman alone can give. "I am sorry, dear saint, but really I must repair to my home. I have much to tell you that will astonish you, but I must leave it for the next time we meet," said he. "When will that be, beloved Victor?" asked she. "Whenever my darling desires it," said he, "but I must not monopolize too much of your time, for you require rest from excitement." "Do not say that, for I only rest when I am in your precious presence. Come tomorrow, but before you leave, tell me only one thing. Where were you when father was first attacked with insanity?" asked she. "I was in my own office, where your noble father visited me to ascertain of the whereabouts of your precious self," said he. "Did you know where I was?" exclaimed she. "No, my love, I did not, but I had some strong suspicion that you were somewhere in that hellhole," said he. "What made you suspicion that?" asked she. "Well, to tell you the truth, I was abducted the very same night, and almost the same hour that you were, and was gagged, bound, and carried to a horrible basement dungeon that was damp, dark, and unhealthy. in that same asylum, ejaculated he. Oh, how horrible, most horrible. But how did you escape? Asked she. Through an honest Irishman's assistance, who was a friend of Pat and Judy, by the name of Jemmy, said he. Jemmy, the honorable fellow, I know him. He was an overseer, was he not, at the asylum? Asked she. That is how I was aided, my love, said he. Then it was through Pat O'Connor and Judy McCree that we got our freedom, replied she. Yes, darling, primarily it was, said he. Oh, beloved Victor, how you must have suffered. But I do not ask you to give me a full statement of everything that transpired since we were abducted just now, as you wish to go to your office, but I long to hear it all very soon. One word more, and I have done for the present, my precious Victor. Where is father? Asked she. I am grieved to tell you that he is a lawful prisoner in that same asylum, but they treat him very kind. I have been to see him once, said he, softly. Poor dear father, she sighed. Do not mourn, my precious love, we will get him well, said he. But now I must go to my office and punish the villainous old deacon. End chapter.
Chapter 59 of The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 59. Dr. Juno performs a serious operation on Deacon Stew. When Dr. Juno arrived at his office, the clock struck 4, being not far from daylight. He found the 6 soldiers and the half-scared deacon nicely seated within his sanctum. He immediately ordered the soldiers to remove the fetters from the deacon. Then he handed the handcuffs to them which his holy deaconship had put on Miss Armington, to be shown him when the doctor said, "Scoundrel, do you know these little bracelets?" "Yes, sir, I do," responded the chop-fallen deacon. "Did you order them to be put on Miss Armington, so that you might carry out your infernal designs?" ejaculated Dr. Juno, flushed with holy indignation. "Answer me squarely, or you may infuriate me so terribly that I will slay you before you have time to reply. Speak instantly." "Yes, sir, I had them placed on her, but—" "No buts, sir," interrupted Dr. Juno. "Well, I was going to say that I did it only to prevent her from assaulting me," stammered the pious deacon. "Liar that you are!" exclaimed Dr. Juno, and now, addressing his men, continued, "Soldiers, put them on his beautiful wrists, joining his hands behind his back, as he did to the innocent and helpless young lady, for the purpose of ravishing her. And, as soon as you have done that, place him on this large center table on his back, and secure his legs backward and upward, for I shall make him a eunuch for the kingdom of heaven's sake, so he cannot become a breeder of sanctified criminals, nor make any more attempts to ravish innocent females." "Oh, have mercy, 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 I pray you! I ask humbly 1,000 pardons, and will make reparation for all the insults, danger, injury, and wrong that I have done to the young lady, if you will only grant me the privilege of escaping your just wrath. By the God above me, I swear it!" ejaculated the helpless deacon, in terrible despair, whilst Dr. Juno stood silent for a moment, staring the deacon in the face, half smiling. Then he said, "Well, sir, you acknowledge more than I thought a saintly scoundrel could be guilty of, and then you coolly ask me to let you off, and you appeal to God to swear to a lie, thinking that I am a fool or a chicken-hearted dunce. But I will show you how coolly I can cut you, how easily, slowly, and torturingly I can ply my professional skill, And again, I will not harm you, but to the contrary, benefit you so much that you may yet repent of your bloody deeds, and be converted to a sound piety before you die. This will be a Christian charity, holy deacon, elect saint, would it not?" said Dr. Juno firmly, sharpening his scalpel as calmly as if he was going to carve an apple. "Oh, doctor, you do not know what drove me to do those acts, with which you are undoubtedly familiar by this time. It was love, pure love, which was refused me, that drove me to those desperate acts," exclaimed the deacon, and continued, "and as you also know what that is, I hope you will be merciful to a disappointed man, whilst you have gained a glorious victory over me." "Indeed, you reason like a philosopher, or like a wicked fool. Does love, pure love, torture and ravish, or attempt to ravish its idol? And do you look upon a man like me to be such a contracted-minded being as to be duped by such sophistry, whilst you are securely in my power? Soldiers, gag him now, when I will to work," said Dr. Juno. It took him 25 minutes to finish his operation, when he had the deacon freed from all his shackles, but before he permitted him to depart in peace, Dr. Juno said, "I shall be compelled to ask you to make an oath, before you leave my office, to the effect that you will never, by word or deed, aid or abet anyone or do any act that will injure either of the Armington family, myself, my followers, or my cause." "You might as well murder me at once," responded the deacon, indignantly and haughtily. "No, sir, I will not become your executioner as yet awhile. But I can torture you quite a little more, and shall do it too, if you are not very careful," ejaculated Dr. Juno. "I don't think you can, for I am suffering 1,000 deaths at present, physically and mentally," exclaimed the deacon. "I am delighted to think that I am able to chastise you thoroughly, by having done to you what will save you from damnation, if anything can do so. In the long run you will say so yourself, noble, pious deacon," said Dr. Juno. "Never, but I shall hate you." "Be careful, old fellow," interposed Dr. Juno. "You are not yet out of my power." "From your present remarks, I guess you do not feel inclined to make the oath for the purpose I have proposed it." "I shall not interfere with any of you in the future, because I know it would not benefit me any. Therefore, rather than be further harassed and tortured by a hard-hearted creature like yourself, I will swear to anything that you may propose," replied the deacon, looking more reconciled to his altered condition. "Then repeat after me, in the presence of these witnesses, repeating your own name as you know such things are done, assuming my position. I, Deacon Rob Stew, solemnly swear to never more, by word or deed, injure Dr. Victor Juno or any of his followers or friends. And, should I do so, I agree to have my upraised left hand burned into cinders, my right hand, which now clasps my beating heart, cut into fragments, and my heart torn out by its roots. Moreover, should I fail to do as before stated, I hope to have my soul cast into outer darkness, where there shall be weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth forever and ever, and where the devil and his boon associates shall hiss at me, and pour pestiferous reptiles, with envenomed darts, upon my sensibilities, lashing and torturing me beyond the expression of language. This do I voluntarily swear, and hope for no other destiny should I fail in the fulfilment of such promises as I have herein made. So help me God. That will suffice, holy deacon. How do you like my style of an oath? Asked Dr. Juno. You are free to leave. The deacon was dumbfounded. He could not utter a word, but amazement stood upon his countenance. He left the house with the utterance, "Accursed be your mystery." End of chapter 59. Chapter 60 of The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Social War of 1900, or The Conspirators and Lovers, by Simon Landis. Chapter 60. The Bloody Conspirators Bothered and Arrested. The last meeting that the sacredly secret conclave held at Tabernacle Hall was on the night when Hansen Tiefel said, "Donner in Blitzen, I think you bees a set of fools to be so scared. Mein Gott, I used winch unser Deacon wash bin well." Never before since the organization of the Bloody Conclave were they so long without calling a meeting. But as soon as the deacon was well, he had other matters to attend to, and then his unfortunate visit to the asylum, and the results that took place in Dr. Juno's office, hindered the call of a meeting until Deacon Rob Stew and Reverend Joe Pier were ready to be present. The Reverend Joe Pier was well pleased with the nursing he received at Tabernacle Sick Room, at the hands of his beloved Nancy Clover. Therefore he was not anxious to hurry his convalescence. At any rate, he was slower in recuperating than the deacon, who, however, had his love stimulant in that third-story cell in the asylum. Therefore it can be seen what a powerful panacea love is. Neither of their affection was reciprocated by the ladies of their choice, but the saintly deacon got the worst dose of it, whilst the reverend lover received more kindly attention from Sister Nancy Clover, because her idol, General Washington Armington, was a lunatic, and beyond her holiest reach. After Deacon Stew had recovered from his wounds, that were inflicted upon him by Miss Armington's bite in his ear, which the young heroine nearly bit off, as also from the surgical operation performed by Dr. Juno, he called a meeting of the secret conclave for Saturday evening, sharp at 8 o'clock, requesting a full attendance, as he had many important matters to discuss. On the night above mentioned, Reverend Joe Pier took the chair, as of old, and Deacon Rob Stew made the opening address, who, however, seemed to be in many respects an altered man since he last met with them. Some conjectured that his altered condition was owing to the beating that he had received on that eventful night, when he and Reverend Joe Pier were nearly killed. Others thought that his long confinement in a sick room caused the change. At any rate, the deacon spoke gently as follows. "Brothers and sisters of the sacredly secret conclave, I rise to say that I have seen much that was disagreeable and mysterious since I have met with you in this hall. I am not splenetic and rash, but yet I have that within me which goads me on to victory in the work which was instituted through my instrumentality. We are besieged on all sides by those heretics who believe in and follow the teachings of Dr. Juno, and unless we can exercise a powerful, unanimous influence with the orthodox religious classes, and also with those who deal in the merchandise to which Dr. Juno is opposed, we are lost. Yes, I say this for the benefit of every member of the conclave, lost. Just think, I have been compelled to listen to the recital of our solemn oath by Dr. Juno himself, and after he had finished its recital, he had the audacity to ask me, 'Deacon, how do you like my style of an oath?' And he looked at me with an eye that said, 'Don't I have your oath verbatim?'" "What did you answer him?" asked Reverend Joe Pier, and continued, "For I am actually feeling weak in my loins to be compelled to listen to this dangerous story of Brother Stew." "I said nothing, because I was struck with amazement," replied the deacon. "How does it come that you were found in company with this vile innovator?" said Nancy Clover. "Do you not know that Dr. Juno mobbed the insane asylum one night a few weeks since, and liberated Miss Lucinda Armington?" responded the deacon, looking distressed. "Why, certainly this is news to me, and I think it so to the balance of the saints," said Nancy Clover. "Further, I cannot understand why he has not been arrested for so doing, and why this matter should be kept quiet. If he is not summarily punished for breaking the peace, and for intruding himself upon our holy institutions, he will grow bolder and become a more dangerous rival in the field of conflict." "Noble Sister Clover, you argue well," said Reverend Joe Pier, "and I tremble, fairly shake in my boots at this awfully perilous state of affairs." "Friends, will you hear me out before you come to such conclusions, or before you censure any of the saints for keeping this matter quiet?" asked Deacon Rob Stew. "Of course we will," responded Nancy Clover. "Well, then, the reason for treating this outrage with perfect silence is self-evident, namely, should we expose Dr. Juno, as he dared us to do, he would profit by it at our peril, because Miss Armington is now at liberty, whilst Dr. Juno is surrounded by a numerous and determined army of soldiers, who obey his commands without prevarication or hesitation. In fact, it is said that his men are ready to invade even this sacred hall and arrest us all, which would be an end of us," said Deacon Rob Stew. "Holy Ghost, look down from above and shield me. Oh, Lord, I feel that we are lost, lost, lost. I have always been fearful that we would make some awful blunder and would be hung some day. Oh, Lord, I feel a choking sensation already," exclaimed Reverend Joe Pier, who was interrupted by Sister Nancy Clover. "You have always been a contemptible coward, and I order you to shut pan. If you cannot encourage the saints, do not discourage them. But I want to hear our noble deacon finish what he has to say, when I will show you a plan to save our cause, and that will explode Dr. Juno's movements." "Noble, holy, immaculate Sister Clover," said Joe Pier, "you do so comfort me and calm my fears, for I have never found you to fail in anything." "Silence!" ejaculated Nancy Clover, "and let the deacon finish." The deacon continued. "Dr. Juno knows all our secrets, but how he has obtained them I am puzzled to know, because I cannot believe that we have one brother or sister who would be wicked enough to violate our solemn oath, knowing what would be the result." "Yes, let them remember Harry Gossamer's fate," interposed Reverend Joe Pier. "I am not a coward," continued the deacon, "but since Miss Armington is at liberty, whilst Dr. Juno is surrounded by good and influential men, I must say that great danger is hanging over the sainthood. Still, I am in favor of rallying the friends of the elect all over the country. But I am myself a prisoner of war, being under parole, and should I be found to aid or abet in this movement, I would be mobbed and shot or hung." "I cannot think it," exclaimed Nancy Clover, "nor can I see why you lay so much stress upon the freedom of Miss Armington. She is nothing but a chit of a thing, who has always depended upon her father, who is a confirmed lunatic." "Do not deceive yourself, noble Sister Clover," interrupted Deacon Stew, "about Miss Armington, for she is anything but a chit of a thing. She is a perfect demon, a tigress, a strategist, and a cunning, fierce, and deep woman, who will wield more influence by half than any living man if she gets a chance." "She shall not get a chance, then," responded Nancy Clover. "Then she will make a chance, for she has outwitted and outgeneraled me on every occasion," said the deacon. At this instant a furious knock was made upon the outside door, and like lightning the same was burst open, when Dr. Juno stepped into the hall and said, "I arrest you all." End of chapter 60.